Members, about 30 seconds till we get to 10 o'clock on the dot, and then we'll kick off. So if everyone can prepare themselves. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Cambridgeshire County Council's Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Henry Batchelor, and I'm the chair of the committee. On my left is Councillor Cathy Ray, who is the vice chair. We have other committee members and officers in the room, and they will become obvious when they begin speaking. So before we get on with the business, I have a few small issues of housekeeping to run through, and then we will begin with the agenda items as listed. So I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's website. The Council supports the principle of transparency and encourages filming, recording and taking photographs at its meetings that are open to the public. Members are advised that this meeting may therefore be filmed, recorded or photographed. Please can I ask all members to turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place. And there is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if it does sound, then please leave by the nearest marked fire exit and assemble at the rear of the building at the far end of the car park. Toilets are available on the ground floor and refreshments are available outside of the venue. So with that, we'll move on to our agenda, starting with agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. I'm going to ask our Democratic Services Officer, Dan Snowden, to run through those.
Thank you, Chair. So we've received apologies from Councillor Bradnam and Councillor Kindersley, as choosing for her, and also Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Kindersley. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Do any committee members have any interest to declare pertaining to items on today's agenda? Councillor Corney, I'm assuming the same as last time.
It was, yes. And just for clarity, I've actually checked that I'm okay to be here, but this this application was actually the job that I carried out probably about 14 years ago now. So, yeah.
Okay, I think that's been noted. Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, for clarity, just to let everybody know when this started, I was the estate surveyor for Hanson Brick at the time.
Thank you, but that doesn't preclude you from taking part today. Good. Okay, if there are no more declarations of interest, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which are the minutes of the previous meeting, which was on the 16th of November 2022. We're being asked to approve these. As I wasn't here, I will have to abstain on that, but can those members that were present, or those members that were present, if there are any objections to approving these minutes, please you raise your hands. I don't see any, so can we take those as approved? I've got a mumble of agreement, so we'll take those as agreed. Thank you very much. So with that, we're moving on to our substantive item, which is item number 4 on our agendas and begins on page 29. It's an application for a Section 73 planning application to continue the importation of controlled inert wastes for the buttressing, stabilisation and restoration of a former mineral excavation face, together with an associated waste reception area. The application site is the land at Saxon Pit, Peterborough Road, Whittlesea. The applicant is East Midlands Waste Group Limited, and the officer who will be presenting it to us is Peter Bond, who I believe has joined us in the room. So Peter, if I hand over to you and you can present the report to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you've said, this is a Section 73 plan application to extend the life of an ongoing engineering and restoration project at Saxon Pit. This slide contains the details of the actual application reference and its location. So, as members will note, the site is to the west of Whittlesea and it's located between Whittlesea and Peterborough. It's an existing site, and the site boundary hasn't changed since the original granted in 2002. Members will note the red line boundary quite centrally there within the drawing, just to the west of the built-up area of Whittlesea. A more detailed plan here gives you the red line boundary for the tipping and the waste reception area, with the blue line heading off towards the northwest, providing the access Hall Road from the A605 Peterborough Road. Members will note the red line skirts the external boundaries of properties along Priors Road and some along Snoots Road. So it's quite a simple application. The proposal is to extend the life of the importation of inert waste for another 2 years and 2 months, and to provide another 2 years and 6 months from the date of the consent to complete all restoration and clearance works. So the imported inert waste is brought into the site, screened in the material screening areas members can see on the plan in front of them, and then used to buttress and support the eastern flank of what was the Saxon pit. This will allow for the final restoration of this old quarry to acceptable standards. The proposal is for an extension of time only. There are no other changes proposed. The site would still be limited to a maximum of 50 HGVs in per day. The same working hours of 7 till 5 Monday to Friday, 7 till 1 on a Saturday, and would still be subject to a condition regarding an amenity buffer zone, which is indicated on the plan there, which restricts working within that buffer zone to between 8 and 5 Monday to Friday only. It is noted by officers that planning permission was first granted in November 2003, and further temporary permissions to complete this work were granted in 2012, 2017, and again in 2020. It is very much hoped that this is a final permission required for this particular development. So in terms of statutory consultees, the responses are summarised in section 6 of your report. None of the technical consultees have raised an objection. The Environmental Health Officer at Fenland DC has considered the proposal in detail, along with recent noise monitoring results, and subject to the conditions protecting amenity being carried over, they have raised no objection. That's the same with the Environment Agency as well. The only statutory consultee to object is Whittlesea Town Council. They've objected over long-term concerns relating to noise, dust, and a concern about pumping of water from the site into the adjacent King's Dyke, which is located to the south of the application site. It is also noted that conditions 29 and 30 of the proposed conditions do restrict pumping of water from the site without prior approval from the County Council. In terms of representations from the public, these are summarised in section 7. We have received 15 representations. They're well summarised, but the key issues raised by these representations relate to ongoing noise from this proposal and the wider Saxon pit site, I think it's fair to say, pollution concerns regarding pumping of water and previous alleged unlawful tipping at the site, and alleged previous non-compliances with planning conditions, both at this particular development and within the wider Saxon pit. In terms of planning policy, in light of the established development at the site, it is considered that policies 1, which relates to sustainable development and climate change, 18, amenity considerations, and 19, restoration and aftercare, those policies of this council's Minerals and Waste Local Plan, they're the key policies to consider. In terms of consideration of this proposal against the development plan, it is considered that there is a demonstrable need for the successful completion of these works and the final restoration of this previously worked out mineral site. It is inevitable that there will be some amenity impacts. There would be some noise, particularly potentially some dust impacts, But in light of the information provided and the ongoing imposition of appropriate conditions, it is considered that none of these impacts will be unacceptable. There will be no increase in HGV numbers, the throughput, and no changes to the types of waste imported to the site. It would remain inert construction and demolition waste types. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, it's a Section 73 application to carry out and carry on a previously approved engineering operation for a further 2 years and 2 months. There's a demonstrable need to finish the works to support the eastern face of this site. The existing conditions will be carried over to protect local amenity and the environment. And finally, it is my opinion that the proposal accords with the policies of the development plan, and it is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions contained in section 12 of your report. And that's me.
Thank you very much, Peter. That was very thorough. Members, before we go on to our public speakers, I should have also pointed out at the start, we are also joined by 2 specialist officers. We have Mr. Darren Smith, who represents the Environment Agency, and also Russell Watkins, who's a Senior Environmental Health Officer at Fenland District Council. So just to make committee members aware, we do have technical support on hand should any members have any specific questions around those areas. Okay, before we move on to the public participation element, I'm going to ask committee members if they have any questions of clarification for any of our officers around the presentation or otherwise. Councillor Gough, please.
Can I just ask us in the report, there's in 3.1, there's reference to the need for 35,000 cubic meters of inert waste to complete the project. That's a different unit to the conditions with respect to which were applied, which were in respect of tonnage. What does 35,000 cubic meters translate to in terms of tonnage, so we can understand how it relates to the limits, and perhaps you could also give an indication of how much each trip by a vehicle would deposit, so that we can get an idea of how many trips 35,000 cubic meters relates to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gough. With this type of material, it is quite difficult to put a definitive comparison between tonnages and cubic meters, but I think it's established industry standard that you are looking at around 1.5 to 2 tons per cubic meter.
Thank you. I think there's a question around the number of trips as well. Was that right?
Sorry, if I can continue. So that's sort of 7. So by my calculation, that's about 70,000 cubic meters. How much per trip, HGV trip?
Again, it varies on the nature of the material, but I think a standard 8-wheeler holds around about 8 cubic meters, and that converts to 16 tons, 16 to 20 tons, depending on it just depends on the nature of the material. If it's big bulky concrete, it will be different to if it's clay extracted from the ground.
Okay, so on the basis of that calculation, I reckon it's about what, 2,500 trips. Sorry,
I haven't done the math, but I'm going to agree with you
to complete the task. Right, so at 50 trips a day, that's 50 days.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, if there's no further questions or clarification at this stage, I will move on to the public speaking element. We will have another opportunity during the debate section of proceedings to ask further questions of officers should we need to. But at this stage, I will move to our public speakers, and we're going to begin with the agent for the applicant, Mr. Stephen Rice, who I'm hoping is joining us in the room. Yes, Mr. Rice, if you could step up and take a seat in front of one of the microphones. Thank you. So just to outline the procedure. You'll have 5 minutes to address your comments to the committee. At the end, if you could stay seated in case there are any questions of clarification for you from committee members, that would be helpful. The mic switches on and off with the button at the bottom of the screen. And please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me okay? Good morning, members of the committee. As the Chairman has said, my name is Stephen Rice and I'm the planning consultant for the applicants. As you're aware, the application before you seeks permission for an extension of time to the extant permission in order to allow for completion and restoration of the buttressing works for the stabilisation of the eastern face of the former Clate pit. Previous extension of time was granted in September 2020. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic and its significant impact on the construction industry has meant that the applicants have been unable to secure sufficient suitable material to complete the buttressing works within the previously permitted timeframe. Since the latter part of 2021, the applicants have made excellent progress, and they are now confident that they can complete the infilling and restoration within the timescale that we're seeking permission for. Operations on the site are closely monitored by the Environment Agency, and the applicants and ourselves have developed a good working relationship with the officer, Darren Smith, who's here today. We are aware that there have been a number of complaints regarding activities at Saxon Pit, and I would like to reassure the committee that both the operator and ourselves take these matters very seriously. We have been and will continue to fully cooperate with Darren at the EA and the environmental health officers at Fenland District Council to ensure that if the buttressing and stabilisation works are found to be causing any nuisance, that the source of this nuisance is identified immediately and procedures put in place to ensure that it's addressed. In addition to the noise monitoring required under the planning permission, additional noise monitoring has been undertaken, and the results provided to both the EA, County Council and Fenland District Council. As the Environmental Health Officer has confirmed when considering this planning application, the noise monitoring results confirm that the works are being undertaken in compliance with the planning permission. There have also been complaints regarding air quality, and although we're convinced that the buttressing works are not causing any adverse air quality impacts, we have recently instructed Ricardos, who are environmental consultants, who've also been retained by Fenland District Council for air quality monitoring. They've been instructed to install an identical device within the pit to monitor particulates, nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide. These results will be shared with the local authorities and the Environment Agency. We will also continue to engage with the Town Council and local community groups to ensure that there is an open line of communication between the operator and the local communities, with the intention to ensure that any issues arising regarding the operations can be swiftly addressed. It's in everyone's interest to complete the restoration of this former brick pit as quickly as possible. We have an approved restoration scheme that's been agreed with the Environment Agency and County Council under discharge of conditions, and we can't commence work with that restoration until the infilling is completed. So I very much hope that you will grant permission for the extension of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and well under 5 minutes, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the applicant's agent? I don't see any hands. Obviously, that was very clear. So thank you very much for your time today. Up next, members, we have two speakers speaking on behalf of members of the public. We have Mr. Alan Besant and Mr. Stephen Hodson, who I believe you are splitting your time between you. Is that correct? Yeah. Well, if you'd both like to come forward then to the table, there's a microphone each. So same procedure as before. There's 5 minutes in total. So however you want to split that, I'll leave that to your discretion. And just in my notes here, I understand Mr. Hodson is speaking on behalf of the Saxon Gate Residents Association. Is that correct? Okay, that's understood. No, it's fine. It's understood. Thank you very much. So, yeah, so the microphone switches on and off with the button at the bottom of the screen. Obviously, I'll be stopping the clock when you do decide to switch over, so you won't lose any time there. So please, whenever you're ready.
Hello, Alan Besson. I'm a Whittlesey resident of 30 years and a member of the Saxon Gate Residents Group. Town and county planning, the goal of that is to ensure sustainable economic development and a better environment. Our recent survey had 300 responses and over 80% said they suffered noise and pollution issues, so it doesn't appear to be working for the local people currently. And we still receive numerous complaints from residents about noise, dust and odour. The restoration works at Saxon Pit should have taken 2 to 3 years, nearly 20 years ago, and we still have ongoing work with at least another 2.6 years before completion. Due to the non-conforming waste issue, we now also have the need for lifetime site monitoring for methane and water pollution. There are now also other operations in the pit which add to the pollution risk and make it harder to determine the root causes. We also want to see the restoration completed. Given all this background, our group has made and raised a number of objections to the application as individuals and as the group, but we have since met the agent. And I must say there was a very positive discussion. We have been told that there will be perimeter dust monitoring, wheel washing, dust dampening, and also a new weather station, and that consideration will be given to suspending or moving works if conditions on a specific day are generating dust due to temperature or wind conditions, which might impact houses. The agent also confirmed a strong wish for the restored land to become a public amenity area with public access. This has reduced our concerns, but it is disappointing given the other operations in the pit and the types of materials that none of the responsible government bodies consider these promises should be enforceable or actual planning requirements. The restoration works are designed to seal the site and remove the risk of contamination into the water table. Currently, and against the EA specific instructions, although a permit has been raised to allow it, water is at times being pumped into King's Dyke to prevent flooding. This is tested intermittently, and the EA say it is currently within safe limits with some elevated levels. Post-restoration, there should be natural filtration, but before then, the residents would strongly like to see temporary water filtration. The agent is open to that possibility, but Anglia Water need to contribute as they inflow some of the water which is also contaminated, so they need to be part of any solution. Residents strongly recommend this is encouraged, and again note that none of the government bodies consider it necessary as a planning requirement for interim water filtration. This would reduce risk for all parties, and if things go wrong, morally, we will all be accountable for our decisions. As residents, we will continue to navigate the patchwork of planning requests, permits and permissions and the multiple government agencies involved. We would like to see and highly recommend an overall plan for the restoration with key milestone dates and a track progress. A lack of planning might be a key reason why this has taken 20 years, and we deserve better from the planning and enforcement process.
Thank you very much. I've stopped the clock, but it might be worthwhile, members, if any members have any question of clarity for Mr. Besant at this stage. And then if there aren't any, I'll bring in our other speaker. I can't see any, so thank you very much. If we could do a switcheroo. So we have Mr. Stephen Hodson. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, might be easier if you sit in front of the mic with the red light on, as it's already switched on. So as I say, we normally split the 5 minutes allowed for public speaking between the two of you, but I'm willing to use a bit of discretion here if you do want to go slightly over. So, please do take your time, and whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, committee. A little background might be helpful. My name is Stephen Hodson. I'm a retired chartered surveyor and had a business in Whittlesey for 40 years selling houses. In my experience, the problems that we have now have not manifested themselves seriously in the past. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Rice for his assistance with this application, because I feel we've overcome quite a lot of the problems that we had. As part of the application evidence, I sent in a couple of reports, which you do have. Firstly, a letter from Environmental Health to Peter Bond requesting numerous requirements to be met as part of this application. Secondly, a report from consultants HSP on the drainage proposals for the site. Can you confirm that the members have seen those?
Can I ask Democratic Services to confirm we've had those, or the officer possibly? We have a lot of information on this application, but I just want to make sure we've had the specific ones you're referring to. And if the officer or someone can assist with that.
Thank you, Chair. The neighbour representations that came in have been forwarded to members, but there may be attachments that members have not been sent. So I'd have to look at that. My apologies.
Well, can I ask that these conditions that were from your consultants or from your employees would be included in the planning permission? Also, I sent details of the minerals and waste local plan just adopted. Policy 18, amenity considerations. Proposals must ensure that developments can be integrated effectively without harm for human health, without annoyance to neighbours on disturbance from sound, dust, smoke, etc. Saxon Pit has been a nightmare generally, not particularly with this site, because as I say, Mr. Rice has been helpful, but there are other operators there that are not playing the game. See, we're nearly out. I've covered most things. Can I just ask that those reports that I sent in to Daniel are told to the councillors and the requirements are entered into any planning permission? And I'll make one final comment. The owner of the site is here. Can we ask him to please try and have vehicles coming into the site from the west and not through the town? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and greatly received. Can I ask members before you do leave us if anyone has any questions of clarification on any of the comments made? I don't see any, so thank you very much, Mr. Hodson. We appreciate you both coming in today and giving us your time, so thank you very much. Members, probably also worth noting as well, we have been sent a list of all the comments that neighbours have made in a quite handy spreadsheet format. So I'm not planning on going through those one by one, but if any members do wish to refer to any of those comments during the debate section, that's absolutely fine. Members, we've heard from our public speakers now. See, I did mention earlier, we have a raft of officers supporting the committee. And as mentioned, we do have the agent and the operator of the site with us in the room. So with that, members, I'm going to move us on to the debate. So it's an opportunity for members to ask any further questions they may wish to ask, formulate a view, and hopefully we can come to a decision on this. So starting off, we have Councillor Smith and then Kindersley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not quite sure who to ask this to, so I will just ask it and hopefully. I read through the papers, I've listened to all the speakers, and a lot of the situations does seem to be, you know, the conditions and where do residents go when there's a problem. The last speaker has just mentioned about lorries, if they were directed the other way. Is this any thing that we can help with to alleviate things? Like I said, I'm not sure where to direct this to, but it does seem like there is some sort of compromise. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but like, you know, sort of some help with for residents. Where do they go when there's complaints?
Sure. So my understanding from when we looked at this last year was that there was a traffic plan in place to stop lorries coming through Whittlesea in or out, but perhaps one of the officers could confirm my recollection.
If I can just come back, sorry. If I can just come back, it does seem like that issue is raised again. If it just means that if, you know, if it works for both, if they could go the other way, if that could help, that's all I'm.
But if officers could just clarify traffic movements.
In terms of the no turning right out of the site and going in through Whittlesea, that was a condition that was imposed on a different planning application within Saxon Pit, which was offered by the operator, Johnson's at the time. This operation, the buttressing, and that has never had that condition. it's not been offered, it's not been recommended by the Highways Department, and so it wasn't in the original application. And obviously this is asking for an extension of time, so it hasn't been proposed at this point. And Chair, if it's okay, can I come back on where residents can go with complaints?
Please, I think that'd be helpful.
Thank you. So myself and Peter and officers from Fenland District Council and Darren Smith of the EA have been regularly meeting with the Saxon Gate group. And so local residents come to us and they know, I appreciate that it's different regulatory regimes. And there has been a request to have one point of contact, but that just isn't possible. And if you need to, Darren Smith from the EA can explain why that won't work for the Environment Agency, and it won't work for county planning either, because we need to have, if it's a complaint about a condition, it needs to come to us. However, we are proactively working with the Saxon Gate group and with Whittlesea Town Council, where we have had, we've attended public meetings and have another one set up for February.
Thank you. I think that's helpful.
Thanks.
Councillor
Just
Smith.
briefly, I'm not suggesting nobody's not working with each other. It does sound like everybody is, which is obviously very good. But like I say, this lorry issue movement, if that could be maybe asked, I don't know. But, you know, it does seem like it's an issue that we could ask maybe.
Sure. I think as Deborah's just indicated, the Highways Department has said it's unnecessary to condition that for this particular application regarding the buttressing. But obviously, as you said, the applicant is here, and I think they have heard what you're saying, and there are regular liaison meetings with the town council. So I'm not going to take any more comments at this stage, but I think we've heard the response from the officers, and as I say, I think the operators of the site have heard as well. Councillor Kindersley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Reading this report, I was a little bit unclear as to why it was in front of us, in fact. Because it strikes me as a very straightforward extension to a planning application. And notwithstanding the fact that there have been a number of extensions, I think we have to be a bit understanding of the fact that in the life of this project, there has been both an economic crash and a pandemic. So I have no problem with the extension. Also, the issue of highways raised by Councillor Smith has been addressed quite fully in the report. And it's been a long time since I've been a member of this committee, but traditionally we would not have had the responses from statutory consultees or indeed consultees. They would have gone to the planning officer, who would have then relayed them in terms of what they were writing in the report to committee. So I don't think that it's critical that we see the actual comments made by the Environmental Health Department at Fenland, because I have every confidence in our officers having interpreted and understood and reported to us what those concerns were. And if they were not appropriate concerns, I wouldn't expect to see them. So given all of that, I would like to propose that we agree this planning application, and if I have a seconder, to bring the debate to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kindersley. Very succinct. Well, members, we've heard Councillor Kindersley's view. Does anybody share that view and wish to second that proposal? I see a hand from Councillor Gardner. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm quite happy to second Councillor Kindersley's proposal for the same reasons.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, we've had a proposal to accept the recommendation in our papers, which has been seconded. So we will take a vote on that now. So to be clear, the recommendation we have in front of us is on page 41 of the agenda. And it is to grant the planning permission subject to the conditions as laid out in the papers. So members, I'm going to ask Democratic Services if they could run a vote on this for us, please. Dan, do you want to do this, or do you want me to do the talking? Okay, fine, but I'll ask you to do the counting of the hands if that's all right. So members, all those in favour of that recommendation to approve, please raise your hands.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. And just for absolute clarity, anybody wishing to vote against or abstain? 0. So members, that application for an extension of time is approved. I just want to say thank you very much to everyone for taking the time to come in this morning. And with that, members, we'll move on to our next item, which is agenda item number 5, and that is summary of decisions taken under delegated powers. Members, we have a report in our agenda packs. I don't think there's any need for an officer to present this, but if any members have any specific questions about anything in the report, please, would you raise your hands now? I don't see any hands, so we can take that as noted. Unless I'm mistaken, that was the last item we had on our agendas. Members, before I do close the meeting, I will give you a heads up. The February meeting on the 22nd is likely to be needed. I was just given the news that the NVAR application in Somersham, St Ives, is due to come to us next month, which will be quite a long meeting, I'd imagine. So if any members can't make that, please would you try and find a substitute as soon as possible, because there'll be quite a lot of reading to do beforehand. So members, with that, I think that's everything we need to discuss today. So at 10:33, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.